don't think you ready. You ready, Nick? You got this?
Are you serious? Hey, Nick, you get that? Hey! I can't believe he did that. What the heck, dude?
When you think of Jamaal Charles, what do you think of? Maybe that really fast guy who played for the Chiefs a while back? Or maybe that electric guy from Madden who just couldn't be stopped on the halfback toss?
Castle, pitch out. A burst of speed, and he's in the open.
Well, when I think of Jamaal Charles, I think of one of the greatest weapons in recent NFL history who was never really able to fully tap his potential. Today, we dive into the career of Jamaal Charles and say, what if? Jamaal Rashad Jones Charles was born on December 27, 1986, and raised in Port Arthur, Texas. Charles had a hard time growing up as a kid due to dealing with learning disabilities and was actually forced to take many special education classes in order to continue his academics. But the place that Jamaal was far ahead of his peers was on the football field. He used football as a way to connect and make the friends that he couldn't at school. He was also very into track as a youth because he knew he didn't have to work with anyone else, it was just him, and he loved running. Once Jamaal got to high school, his athleticism was catching the eyes of everyone around the state, mostly due to his blazing speed. He became a track star his sophomore year, helping his team break the national record in the 4x200 relay. His success led him to earning a trip to the 2003 World Youth Championships, and he actually took home bronze in the 400-meter hurdles. The next year, he became a superstar on the football field as well. He rushed for over 2,000 yards with 27 touchdowns. By the end of his senior year, everyone knew his name, and he was a demon on the track as well as the football field. He decided to stay local and play football as well as also run track for the University of Texas. And for those who remember, he was actually a freshman on that amazing team with Vince Young, who took down the seemingly unbeatable USC team with Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, among many others. After a little sophomore slump on the football field the next year, he decided to put track to the side and really focus on football for his junior year. And it paid off. After a monster junior year, Jamaal Charles decided to take advantage of his draft stock and declare for the NFL draft. After being projected by many as a first-round pick, he actually slid to the third round, most likely due to a couple things like his size and questions about his durability, not to mention the loaded running back class that he was in with players like Darren McFadden, who was a god at the time, Jonathan Stewart, Chris Johnson, Matt Forte, and Ray Rice, among many others. Charles was a smaller speedster, and even though he had been working on his size and being able to handle a heavy workload throughout college, some NFL teams were not sold on him yet. Finally, the Chiefs decided to pick him up in the third round, and Charles said this moment honestly humbled him, and he said he thinks that he really needed it, and he was beginning to get a little too cocky and not as hungry as he should have been. Now, as we get into his NFL career, which was nothing at all short of a great career, it's just hard to confidently say that it couldn't have been much better considering what this guy was able to do. When it's all said and done, Jamaal Charles still finished with over 7,500 career rushing yards and 44 rushing touchdowns, averaging an unthinkable 5.4 yards per carry for his career, and also added over 2,500 yards receiving and 20 more receiving touchdowns. All said and done, Charles retired with over 10,000 all-purpose yards and 64 touchdowns, but the way his career went down, I really don't think it's crazy to think that he could have doubled those numbers if things went a little bit differently. Now, going into his rookie year, the great Larry Johnson was still around, and the first couple of pro seasons for Jamaal, he just wasn't getting the carries that he would have liked, but year 3 is something that raises a lot of questions for me right off the bat. At the end of his second season, Jamaal took over and had some real electric games down the stretch. He ended up finishing the year with over 1,100 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on a monstrous 5.9 yards per carry. Everyone was hyped to see what the kid was going to do in year 3, with him basically expected to be given the keys to the offense. But during the offseason, in 2010, the Chiefs went out and signed Thomas Jones, who was supposed to be basically the goal line back to complement Charles, but it didn't really turn out that way. For whatever reason, Jones outcarried Charles on the season. Now, by the end of the previous year, Jamaal Charles was viewed as one of the most electric backs headed into the next season, and they gave this man, Thomas Jones, who was he was getting old and he was starting to decline, but they gave him way more carries. Now, a quick look at Jamaal Charles' stats and you're like, well, he had over 1,400 rushing yards, almost 500 receiving yards, made the Pro Bowl. I mean, what's wrong with that? But he had all those numbers and averaged 6.4 yards per carry. 6.4 yards per carry, and yet somehow Thomas Jones got more carries throughout the season while only managing 3.7 yards per carry and didn't even eclipse 900 yards on the ground. Simple math tells me that 6.4 is much better than 3.7. 6.4 yards per carry for the season is actually just unheard of. To put that into perspective, Derrick Henry, who basically didn't get tackled most of the season, especially down the stretch, he only averaged 5.1 yards per carry. Decisions by head coach Todd Haley had Chiefs fans pulling their hair out as they couldn't understand why basically Christian McCaffrey was sitting on the bench and not involved in which should have been like shit every single play. I know there was injuries and stuff, and we're going to get to that soon, but I really wish the Chiefs would have just let this dude go crazy when he was already such a god in his second and third year. If they gave him the full load, I can't imagine what he would have done at such a young age. Now, on to the sad part. Injuries. Nothing you can really do sometimes, and this was one of those times. Charles tore his ACL right after his breakout / held back third year in the league, and he obviously didn't play the season. But after rehabbing, he came back even more of a demon. At 25 years old, coming off an ACL surgery, he came back, actually got the full workload, and rushed for 1,500 yards on 5.3 yards per carry en route to a second Pro Bowl selection. He continued to be godlike for 2 more years and had 2 more Pro Bowls, never averaging under 5 yards per carry for the season, and also being an electric pass catcher out of the backfield as well. In 2015, the unthinkable happened. At 28 years old, Jamaal Charles once again tears an ACL. It was heartbreaking, and this time he just wasn't the same after the recovery. He may have come back a little bit too soon, and he ended up needing another surgery the next season and basically missed 2 full years. By this point, the Chiefs had already given up on him as the lead back, and they were already making moves to move on from the once goated Charles. In 2017, Jamaal went to the Broncos and he did alright, but they didn't really give him much of a real chance at a real workload or anything like that. And just like that, the once great Jamaal Charles' career was basically over, and he tried to claim he still had a lot in him, but unfortunately, no one was convinced. In 2019, Charles signed a 1-day contract with the Chiefs to retire as one, and he deserved it. Although he never hit his full potential, he is still a Chiefs legend and still accomplished many things that a lot of Chiefs running backs will never do. Crazy to think a lot of people actually still say that he has an outside shot at getting into the Hall of Fame, even though realistically it's probably not going to happen. At the end of the day, Jamaal Charles only had 4 seasons where he was given over 200 carries, and he went to the Pro Bowl 4 times, averaging a stupid 5.4 yards per carry. The fact that he averaged 5.4 yards per carry over the course of his entire career is just insane and something that won't be topped anytime soon. But at the end of the day, I just can't help but wonder, what if the Chiefs actually used Jamaal Charles like Christian McCaffrey is used today and took advantage of his crazy abilities even sooner? And of course, what if he never had such terrible luck with his injuries, or even when he came back from the first ACL tear, what if he stayed healthy and continued his dominance? So many what ifs about this guy. It's really a shame what happened to him and how fast he went from a star to gone, just like that. Jamaal Charles was one of the best running backs the league has ever seen, and we didn't even get the privilege of seeing what he really could have been. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace.